The strangest thing about nostalgia is how ordinary the days felt at the time. I read this recently and it made me think about those things I missed about going back to school as a Gen X kid. Now, even though my girls are grown and my school days are way behind me, there's something about back to school season that just bring back some memories. Here are 10 of mine. Some of them you might have loved but just forgotten about. I loved summer as a kid. It meant getting to sleep in late, playing outside with our friends till the street lights came on. I remember knocking on the neighborhood kids' doors to see if they could come out and play. We'd play hide and seek, kick the can, run in the sprinkler. We created our own fun. And it was a great time of year. But then come August, it got hot. We ran out of things to do and we just got bored. But you know what? That was a good thing. That boredom, what made us really excited and ready for a change in routine that back to school brought. When you think about it, we have very little time to be bored anymore. Our phone is right there ready to entertain us, or there's something on TV at all times. Back in those simpler days, that boredom was just time to be still, and then it made getting back into a routine that much better. And number two, by the end of the summer, I was tired of our neighborhood friends. I was ready to be around new people. And going back to school meant reconnecting with the friends we hadn't seen all summer. Because back in those days, I don't know about you, but my mom wasn't organizing a lot of play dates and I wasn't getting together with my friends that lived across town. I had my sister and my neighborhood friends, so that was good enough. I was ready for new people. I was ready to get back and catch up with what they'd done over the summer because I hadn't seen it on a social media feed. I had to hear it firsthand in person. Going back to school meant reconnecting with those friends that I'd missed over the summer, and we had plenty to talk about because we hadn't seen each other. So the next thing that I really missed about going back to school was the clothes. How fun was it to go to the mall with your mom and pick your back to school outfits? Now, clothes were so much more expensive back then, but they were also better made. And you really had to be strategic about how you stretched your dollar. Now, our closets weren't stuffed like they are now. There wasn't that cheap fashion that's on Amazon and online everywhere. You really had to make your choices work together and you took good care of them. There wasn't as much decision fatigue about what to wear because you only had a few pieces. And if you were lucky, your mom let you get one of those polo shirts or those Gloria Vanderbilt skin tight jeans, you know, the kind where you had to lay on your bed, pull the zipper up as you sucked in. We felt so fashionable and we looked good. We dressed up for school more than they do now. There wasn't active wear and we weren't allowed to wear shorts. We had to look nice. And I miss that fun time of seeing what everyone's wearing and getting to wear those fresh clothes. It was so fun to start the school year off that way, and clothes felt more special. Now, the next thing that I looked forward to in that back to school season that kids today can't even understand, we look forward to the new fall TV lineup. Do you remember getting the Sunday paper and looking at the TV guide about when the shows were going to first premiere? Some of those favorite sitcoms, they barely make them anymore, but those sitcoms that we love to watch, we had to plan our nights accordingly because at early days I didn't have a VCR. So we thought about that and when those soap operas at night like Dallas and Dynasty, if our parents let us watch, we kind of thought about we looked forward to those new episodes. Nowadays, they're at your fingertips, anything you could possibly want, and I feel like it gets overwhelming. But it was a lot more special to wait for those new TV shows to come out. The next thing that I loved about back to school, and maybe this is a little nerdy on my side, but I loved fresh school supplies. A new notebook, sharpened pencils. And I felt so special when my mom let me get one of those little staplers so I could staple things at my desk. Yes, I know I'm a nerd, but I loved getting those new school supplies. And remember how special the Trapper Keeper was, and just all the fresh things about starting school. And it just brings back so much memories that I still can't pass a school supply aisle without getting maybe a new spiral notebook or some new pens, just to bring back that feeling of a fresh start to a new year. And do you remember how we used to cover our textbooks with either grocery bags, paper grocery bags, or paper, and then we decorate them throughout the year? Nowadays, I don't think kids even get textbooks. The next thing that I remember as a kid and preteen and even teenager, we all had to stay current on music. And we did this by listening to the radio. Even Casey Kasem's Top 40. We all were listening to the same songs and we were making mixtapes. Remember calling in or even just waiting for the radio to play your favorite song, and you had to hit record as quickly as you could so that you could gather all your favorite songs on one tape. I think there was some fun about that, all listening to the same music, staying current. Nowadays with Spotify, I mean, yes, you can listen to whatever you want, but I think there's just too many choices. So sometimes I just don't even know where to start. The radio was such a big part of our lives. We listened to the radio a lot, made up dances to like Eye of the Tiger and some of those songs that would come on repeat. And I think some of those songs from our 70s and 80s are still popular today because we had such a good connection to it. Even Glee made a lot of those songs popular. I miss that common bonding of everyone listening to the same songs. It was also the time where MTV was actually music videos. Do you remember that? Remember when Thriller came out and we all watched that video so many times? We loved the story behind the song that was played out in the music video. I don't even know if they have music videos now. The next thing that I miss about those days, which is actually surprising because as an introvert, it was a little hard at first, but that is talking to our friends on the phone for hours even. But you had to first dial your friend's phone number and you remembered all of those numbers. Can you believe that? Nowadays, I can barely remember my own. But you had to dial their home phone number and talk to their parents and use your best manners. And then they finally put your friend on the phone. And you would drag that phone, stretch that cord as far as you could into the other room to have a little privacy. And you could talk about your day, who likes who, and who was wearing what, and just a lot of bonding time in those phone calls. And I felt so special when my mom let me get my own phone in my room when I was a teenager. Nowadays, of course, everybody has their own private phone number and you call and text or whatever and you know what you're going to get. But in those days, it was so fun to catch up with your friends. And yes, your mom got on the phone and said, okay, time's up. I've got to use the phone. But just remember how fun it was to catch up with your girlfriends on the phone. Now, the next thing that I miss, which is ironic because I do love a good video or the quality of pictures that we're getting nowadays, I miss that time when not everything was photographed. You know, we did have those little film cameras that you had to click and then wind, and then you wouldn't know what the pictures looked like until 2, 3 weeks later when you had them developed. And of course, you always got doubles, which seemed like a mistake when half the pictures, everyone's eyes are closed. But you weren't worried about documenting your life every second of the day. Instead, you were making memories and actually remembering them. There was no photographic evidence of anything you might have done wrong that would get back to your parents. Not that that was me or anything. And like, you didn't have to be so worried if your outfit wasn't perfect or your hair wasn't perfect because no one was going to remember it a couple days later because there's no photographic evidence. I miss that time of just living life instead of having to document it all the time. Now, this next thing that I really miss, especially about those days, that I didn't appreciate at the time because it felt kind of inconvenient. But that was that Sundays were truly Sabbath or rest days. You went to church and we came home, and usually my mom had like a crock pot roast Sunday lunch that was really special. Then the rest of the afternoon, there was no schedule. There was no soccer practice. Stores weren't open. We had blue laws here, so nothing could be open on Sundays. People got a day off of work, and we really rested. We maybe played some outside, and we got bored so that we were actually ready for Monday to go back to school. I know we could still have these Sabbath days, but it seems like life gets busier and more crowded, and I need to protect that time better than I do. And I certainly miss those slower Sundays of our youth. Now, this last thing that I miss about being a kid is ironic because it was not even on my radar to even think about. But once I became an adult, a wife, and a mother, I looked back and really started to appreciate that my mom was in charge back then of what we ate, what was for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Little did I know that what's for dinner question would be a bane of my existence from adulthood on. I didn't appreciate it at the time. Even if I didn't like what she made, she was making that decision and I was free to think of other things. Of course, there's a lot of good things in today's world that I wouldn't trade for, but it's just fun remembering being a kid. What are some of the things that you miss? Tell me in the comments so we can reminisce together. And if you like this video, you'll like this one next.